You ever seen your own kid's face shoved into a porch railing by two guys in knockoff uniforms, one hand twisted up behind his back and the other clawing his shoulder while some wannabe cop yells for an armory code like you're in a spy movie? Because let me tell you, there's nothing quite like that. Sound the scrape of boots on old wood, the bark of authority that isn't real, and the crackle of a bargain bin radio coughing up nonsense call signs. For a split second I just watched, and I swear my first thought wasn't even fear. It was, seriously? This is how they want to play it. So I step out. Not stomping, not shouting, just steady, flat, controlled like I used to do back in the days when one wrong word could cost people their jobs or worse. "Let him go," I said. No drama. One of them almost flinched, but the other started in with that HOA script. "Sir, this is an HOA enforcement action. Interfere and it gets worse." You ever notice how people who fake power get real hung up on the script? They kept saying custody instead of detention, got the badge placement wrong. Even the badges themselves looked like they'd been ordered off the internet after midnight. They started dragging my son down the steps. And that's when it hit me. These guys had no idea who they were up against. They saw a stubborn dad, a family, maybe a soft target. They didn't know I'd spent years in rooms where mistakes like theirs meant the end of careers or worse. And they sure as hell didn't know I was about to become their biggest problem. Enter Marble Cross. She didn't arrive quietly either. No, she pulled up in this cherry red Mercedes SUV that just screamed, "Look at me, I'm important." Steps out, clipboard under her arm like it's a weapon, and starts barking orders to her two rent-a-cops. "Proceed," she said, her eyes on my son, never even glancing at me. Didn't ask what happened. Didn't care. Walked right onto my porch like she was moving a piece of furniture, and announced, "This cabin, the shoreline, and all armory assets are now under HOA oversight. Emergency compliance review." If you're picturing a woman who believes paperwork is the same as law, you've got her. She thought control was just a matter of making the right noises, memorized phrases, threats, dressed up as policies. The HOA supersedes individual ownership during emergencies, she told me, flashing a wad of copied documents. Bad scans, signatures that didn't line up, the whole thing just screamed fake it till you make it. Claimed the board approved it. Claimed the county was in on it. Claimed if I pushed back the consequences would escalate. I'd lived here longer than she'd even known this town existed. None of that mattered. To Marbell it was about control, not safety, and she'd already decided how this was going to end. The next morning my driveway looked like a low-budget police drama. The cherry red Mercedes was parked alongside a blue Explorer, both washed and polished to the point of absurdity, sticking out against the browns and grays of the real neighborhood. Two men in vests with those sad, crooked badges were out snapping photos of my house, my kid, the mailbox, anything to look official. "You recording again?" One of them snapped at my son. Kid barely blinked, just shot him a look that said, "Are you serious?" I stepped out, empty hands, even voice, just letting the quiet do the talking. "This is private property. Step back." One of them smirked. "Private doesn't matter. You're in our compliance zone." They kept fumbling their radios, kept tripping over the lingo. My son muttered under his breath. "Ridiculous," I whispered back. "Let them think we're just a regular family." But every so often I dropped a little hint, a reference to the right federal statute, a correction on their paperwork, a term they didn't get. Just enough to make them uncomfortable without quite knowing why. From the street a neighbor waved, nervous. I nodded back. Nobody wanted to get involved, but you could feel it, eyes behind curtains, tension hanging like a summer storm. Marble Cross didn't show up that day, but her little empire did. 2 days later it got worse. My son found a formal notice duct taped to our door, hourly fines, unauthorized occupation threats about emergency security directives. None of it was real. County codes that didn't exist, HOA policies twisted out of shaped signatures that looked traced from a fax machine. I read it quiet. "Ignore it," I said. One of the fakes stood at the door measuring compliance with a clipboard. The other circled the lake storage, taking photos of the locked armory like he had a clue what he was looking at. Marbell herself showed up for 5 minutes, heels clicking out a rhythm across the concrete, eyes on me. Didn't say a word, just nodded, and her men moved like marionettes. But every time they said custody or enforcement action, you could feel it getting heavier. My son caught my eye. "Dad, they look serious." I leaned against the doorframe. "Let them stew. They need to believe they're in control. That's all they've got. Neighbors tried not to look, but you could feel their glances see curtains shift. I let the HOA keep guessing, never raising my voice, never backing down, just letting them think they were winning. But I knew sooner or later someone would push too far. By the third morning, the threats had teeth. Immediate compliance required. Non-compliance will trigger enforcement action. In bold red letters. This time my son noticed photos had been taken of the armory lock close up enough to see the layout inside. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about looking tough, this was reconnaissance. A land grab, plain and simple. I told my son to document everything, no reactions, no drama. Meanwhile, I traced their filings online, and what do you know? Forged signatures, county lines redrawn by hand, emergency easements out of thin air. They wanted control and the price tag. Easy 7 figures if they could pull it off. I started leaving more clues. Little breadcrumbs, references to federal process, chain of command, the way real law works. The fake cops noticed but couldn't quite put their finger on it. He's too precise, too knowledgeable, could be federal, I heard one say into his radio. Marble Cross kept up the act, calling in compliance measures, barking at her men, but you could see at the first cracks. Inside, I dug through emails, HOA board minutes, anything that showed their pattern. It was all about that weapon storage, all about leverage. The real value wasn't safety, it was power. And as the fake cops started to hesitate, glancing at my son's camera, at the way I never flinched, I knew their confidence was starting to drain away. That evening, Marble tried one last big move, second patrol attempt, more threats, more paperwork. They still thought they could wear us down by showing up, by being loud, by pretending authority. They didn't realize they'd already lost. I had called in favors quietly. A county clerk off the record confirmed every one of their easements was garbage. I had a surveyor on the way, a line drawn in the sand. The next morning was the showdown. The HOA squad pulled up early, full display radios, blaring compliance jargon flying. My son filmed everything, following every bit of advice I'd drilled into him. Keep rolling, stay calm, watch for the cues. Marble strode up, barking orders. Bring him out, take control. They had crossed every legal line, trespass, forged docs, intimidation, and they didn't even know how far in over their heads they were. I let them come. Watched their posture, their eyes, the way the doubt started to flicker. I suggest you let him go, I said, measured. Marble finally looked at me. Who are you? That was it. The moment they realized this wasn't a game anymore. I shrugged off my jacket, letting the badge show nothing flashy, just the facts. My old rifle slung not as a threat, but as a statement. You're bluffing, one said. I smiled, just a twitch. Try me. You're about to find out what happens when you mistake power for authority. For the first time, the neighborhood went dead silent. You could feel everyone holding their breath behind the blinds. Marble's bravado wavered. I opened a folder, every fake document, every altered map, every forged signature right there in front of them. These filings fraudulent. Your signatures fabricated. Your jurisdiction non-existent. I pointed to my son's phone, still recording. Every threat, every movement, every claim captured. Evidence for federal authorities. Marble blanched. That's impossible. But her men, now they looked like they'd seen a ghost. All that fake power, all those threats dissolved under the weight of the real thing. Everything you've done, coercion, intimidation, trespassing, impersonating officers, goes in a federal file. You want to see what real enforcement looks like. Marble's mouth worked, but nothing came out. Her clipboard started to shake. Her men froze, realizing too late they'd picked the wrong hill to die on. I gave a little nod, and here's the twist. The ace in the hole, 2 deputy marshals, plain clothes. Until now, stepped out from my team. Rifles slung, voices steady. Securing the scene, sir. The HOA squad dropped their act, one literally dropping his clipboard, the other stepping away from my son. And just like that, the charade ended. Panic set in. Marble looked between her shiny SUV, her useless papers. My team. She tried to yell, "You can't do this," but everyone knew she was finished. Neighbors started creeping out, gathering at the edges, quiet at first, then talking. The tension bled away like air from a tire. I put an arm around my son, guided him back onto the porch. His breath was shaking, but he was safe. The sun glinted off the now impounded Mercedes, the blue Explorer locked up tight. People started coming over, asking what happened, shaking their heads, relieved. We had no idea it got this far, one woman said. For the first time in days, it felt like home again. Within an hour, my marshals served charges: kidnapping attempt, impersonating law enforcement, coercion, conspiracy, you name it. The HOA's assets were frozen, the board dissolved by county order, all those fake easements null and void. The law laid down in front of everyone. I made sure my son saw it all, understood that authority is something you prove, not something you scream about. Funny thing, once the threat was gone, neighbors brought out lemonade cookies, old stories. That cul-de-sac, which had felt like a battlefield, suddenly felt normal again. Marble Cross, who thought she could own the world with a signature and a stare, was powerless. Her plan, her emergency, had backfired so hard it was almost embarrassing to watch. Standing on that porch with my son, watching the water glimmer past the tree line, it hit me. Power's only real if people let it be. Stay quiet, stay scared, and the wrong people take over. But the second you speak up, call their bluff, bring real law into the light, well, that's when justice finally shows up. The silence wasn't empty, it was earned. So let me ask you, where's the line really between power and authority? How far should someone go to defend what's theirs? Ever had to stare down a bully in a suit? Or worse, a neighbor with a clipboard just to keep what's rightfully yours? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment. Tell me where you draw the line between compliance and standing your ground. Maybe we'll all learn a little something about justice together.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.